Alright guys, here we are back for another painting tutorial. And today we are painting the new Wight King on Skeletal Steed. And we're going for a muted color scheme on this guy. And so we're going to do that in a couple different ways. The main way that we're going to do is we're going to base coat him entirely in black Templar contrast paint. And then paint other contrast paints over the top of him. And hopefully this will create a scheme where we can see colors still, but that is slightly more muted and not pow in your face. And so because of that, we're then going to use some basing techniques, or some colors on the base that will be very bright and lively. And so a combination of this should give us a pretty cool miniature, I think, and will be the base for an entire army. This miniature is not for me personally, but the person who I'm painting this for, or really the person who let me have this model to paint for the channel, plans on doing the whole army like this after we came up with this scheme. So I'm just going to apply Black Templar, like I said, to the whole miniature. Don't want to put it on too thick. I still want to be able to see all the detail. And we want the contrast paint working, like as we can see right here. We got those pale lines on the edges. We want all that because our contrast paint we lay over the top of these will pick those out and give us the colors we're looking for. So I'm just going to finish applying this all over the miniature. Then we'll make sure that is completely dry, since we'll be painting directly on top of it, and we'll come back and keep going. Alright, so we're back and our black Templar is all applied and dried. Now we're going to move on to our first color, and for that we're going to use Nyllic Oxide. And this is almost like a contrast paint, to be honest. It goes on pretty transparent. It's slightly thicker in terms of the coating of color it puts on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply this to the armor, but I'm going to have a paper towel ready, and I'm just going to wick up some of the paint that we put down with that paper towel so that things aren't too colorful. We want them to be colorful, but not super colorful. So I'm going to start with the shield, and you'll see what I mean. So I'm going to coat the entire shield with this, as you can see here. And this paint will stay wet for a good amount of time. And then I'm just going to take my paper towel and just going to start wiping it off here, pressing it down, have it absorb some of the color. It'll stay in the recesses. It'll come off the flat parts. We just got to get our paper towel in there and dab it up in like that, and there we go. That's what we're looking for. So I'm just going to keep doing this on the rest of the armor. I'll do the sides here real quick, and again just taking the paper towel, rubbing that in / off, just like that. And this side is already mostly done for us. Alright, and then we'll just pick another armor panel here. I'll do this one. Just apply it across like this. You can also use just a brush to get it off if you want it, but I find the paper towel works pretty well. So we put that on there, and then just take our paper towel and wipe it off. And if you find that it's not coming off enough, then you can go into a wet brush. Just get a brush here and get it nice and wet. There we go. And then just come in and take a little bit of it off. But what else happens is while we're rubbing it, you can see here that we've rubbed off some of the black Templar. So we have these white primer lines showing through. And normally that would be bad. We've rubbed off our base coats, that's not good. But in this case, because we're going for a sort of muted, ghostly look, those stark white highlights actually help the final product. So it's okay. That's what we're looking for. So I'm just going to keep doing this on the rest of the armor. It's a pretty lengthy process, so I won't keep the camera running the whole time. So I'll do that on the rest of the armor, come back, and we'll move on to the next step. Alright, so we're back. All of our blue is done. We put this all over the armor, and as you can see, it kind of gives a sort of weird, ghostly effect. And that's what we're going for. So now we're going to go into some Blood Angels Red to do the cape. And we're doing this over black, so it's automatically going to be dulled down a little bit, but we'll probably have to use the paper towel to dull it down even a little bit more. So, just putting this in here, being careful not to get it on the armor. Just pull it down here. Oh. Thankfully, with contrast paint, if you make a little bit of a mistake, you can just get your brush wet and pull the paint right back up, so that's not a problem. So we'll just keep doing this cape. We'll do the whole thing, and then we'll let it dry completely. Basically, on every step for this, we're going to be letting it dry completely. We don't want to be starting another step before we do the next one, because of the rubbing and stuff we're going to be doing. We don't want to upset any other layer while we're doing that. So I'll do the front of the cape, or the back of the cape here, and then just carefully wipe some of it off. We don't want to wipe this onto the armor, so we want to be very careful, just wiping along the cape, not wiping it onto anything else. There we go. And then as you can see, like here and along here, it starts to rub the primer, or rub down to the primer, just enough that it gives us this sort of weird ghostly highlight look. And that's what we want. So there we go. There's the back of the cape done. Like I said, we'll let that dry completely before we do anything else to it. So I'll do this side of the cape, and we'll come back and do the next step. Alright, so our cape is all done there. Now we'll go on to the next step, which is going to be all the robes, basically not his cape. And for that, we're going to use the contrast orange, whose name always escapes me. It's either Griff Hound orange or Griff Charger orange, and I think it changes every time I say the name. But for real, it is Griff Hound orange. So that's what we're going to do. And we're going to do the same thing that we've done with the previous two colors. We're just going to apply it here on the robes. We'll start with the horse's robes. And then just take our paper towel and come down and dab it off like that. The chainmail we can be a little bit not as careful around, because we are going to use some layer paint on that. And then we'll, well, I'll explain that when we get there. But we're going to keep the chainmail in this same theme, obviously, but we're going to do a couple different techniques on it to make it look a little more real. So, as you can see, I'm just doing the same thing that I've been doing. I'm just going to do this on all of the cloth here. Around here, around this, all this detail we've already done, I'm going to have to be very careful. I'm probably going to use a wet brush to wipe some of this off rather than the paper towel. The paper towel is a little bit too much of a blunt tool for this. So I'm just going to take my wet brush and come back in and soak some of this paint back up. And that will get us the same effect, more or less. And especially because it's going to be hidden around all this other detail, we're not as worried about it. Just grab that out there. There we go. Probably a little bit more needs to come off. Just rub that off with the brush. There we go. Alright, so I'll do this on the rest of the cloth here. He's got some cloth under his arms here, and then obviously the cloth here and here. And then we'll let that dry completely and come back and do the next step. Alright, we're back with all our cloth all done. So now we're going to move on to Gore Grunta Fur. And we're going to do this on all the leather that you see on the miniature. And this is a pretty dark color, so we might not have to do as much wiping down as we have with some other stuff. But on places like this, where we got a little bit of the blue on there, we will have to wipe down, just because the blue is pretty light, and so we'll actually take contrast paint better than we want the area to. But on places like the reins here, we may not have to do as much. So we're just going to be careful. Wipe along here. And then come back in with another brush. Just soak some of it back up. Not all of it. Some of it can stay. But not too much. So then we're just going to do this This is going to go on the reins. Here, the stirrups. He's got a belt around his waist. And I think that might be it for the leather. Let's see. Oh, the straps on the shield. So we'll just put this in a couple of those places. Then, as always, let it dry completely. And we'll come back, and I think we'll move on to some of the metal, which is going to be a slightly different process, but to hopefully achieve the same look that we're going for the rest of this stuff. So, like I said, I'll finish up this leather, get it all wiped back off and worked in to where it needs to be, and we'll come on back and start on the metal. Alright, so that's all dried up, and I said we were going to start on the metal, but we're actually going to do the skeleton part of this guy as well. So first we're going to start with Rakarth flesh, and we're going to put this on all the bone that this guy has, but we're just going to sort of overbrush. We're not going to fully paint it in. We just want to get the raised edges here, and then we're going to come back with Black Templar, which is what we originally put on this miniature, and just go over this stuff, because we don't want the skeleton sticking out as much as it will be when we paint it this color. Sticking out in the sense of being much more vibrant than everything else on the miniature. We do want it dulled down, but it will, by putting this color down first, we are still going to have a much more vibrant color on it than the rest of the miniature, because there'll be this light color under it instead of the Black Templar. And you'll see as we put it on, the Black Templar will mask a lot of this color, but will still help the face of the miniature and the bone of the horse stand out. So, like you see here, I'm just kind of, I call it overbrushing. I'm not sure if it has a real term. We're just getting the high points. Some spots are staying black. Some spots are becoming bone color. So we're just going to do this around the whole miniature. It should be just the legs of the horses, his hands, and then we already did his face, so we're all good there. Let's grab his other hand here. And then we'll be good to go. So I'm just going to finish this up. Just got to do the other legs of the horse real quick. And we will come back and... Actually, you know what? We're not even going to do that. We're going to stay right here. I'm going to finish this up, and we'll go straight into the chainmail, which we're going to do the same way. And then we'll take a break, let that all dry, and then we'll put our Black Templar on top of both of these colors at once. Alright, so that should be all the bone done. Oh, no, the other side of the horse's face here. I knew I was forgetting something. Just get that right in there. There we go. Alright, so now we're going to do the exact same thing with the chainmail. And for that, we're going to use Retributor armor. Just pop this open. And I'm just going to be very gentle on this stuff. And just lightly graze all this chainmail. Maybe a little too much water on the brush there. Paint just a little bit too thin. But as you can see, we're not coating it completely. We're just giving it the hint of gold so that when we put our Black Templar back over it, this hint of gold will still shine through. So I'm just going to continue doing this on all the chainmail. He's got chainmail here on the horse armor and then up around his head. And I believe that's it. Oh, around the horse's head as well. So I'll finish this up, get this last bit of chainmail, and then I will let those dry completely, and then we'll come back with our Black Templar to dull these back down. Alright, so we're back with all our gold and our bone finished up. And I actually added a gold in a couple more places than I said before I paused the camera. So I put some just kind of dry brushed up here on the details on his armor in a couple places. Skull here on the reins a little bit. And then I put it on the shield. So now we're going to take our Black Templar that I talked about, and we're going to put this back over the gold and the bone. However, well, this is my new pot of Black Templar, I realize. Let me not open that yet until this one's empty. Alright, here we go. Black Templar. I'm not going to put it back over the shield. I'm going to leave this symbol on the shield just as gold as it is, but the rest of it, I'm going to put this Black Templar back over it lightly so as not to completely cover it. But I do want it to fade back down to be similar to the rest of the colors here. And then we might take the paper towel and just rub it off a little bit. We'll see how it looks after we do it on here. So that's the chainmail applied. We'll just take the bit of the paper towel here and just give this a little bit of a rub. I think that looks good though. Yeah, that looks good. So we'll just do it on the rest of this chainmail just very lightly. So like I said, we still want the gold to shine through, but we don't want it to be just completely as vibrant as it would be normally. Just put a little bit around there. And then get the chainmail up around his head. And then the horse has some chainmail on his head as well. Alright, I think that's it. So now, we'll put it on the bone. So we're just putting it back down on what we painted with this color. And we're just putting it on light enough that we can still see what we did with the bone, but it's still knocking that bone way down. And then we're going to come in with some Skeleton Horde contrast paint, put that over the bones, and so the lighter highlights that we painted in will just get caught that tiny bit extra because of what we did here, and that will help the Skeleton Horde give a nice, again, a nice muted bone color that we want. So that looks about right. Just a little too much Black Templar on the face. Just pull that back off a little bit. And the face, if it's a little brighter than the rest of it, that's okay. We like people being drawn to the face of the miniature, so that's all good. So, that's all set. We're going to let that Black Templar completely set up and dry, and we'll come back and do the Skeleton Horde. Alright, so we've got all that dry. Now we're going to come back in with Skeleton Horde. And everywhere that we have bones, we're going to paint this on. So we'll start with the face here. And give that a nice bone color there. The face of the horse. The legs. So as you can see, at least hopefully we can see on camera, you can see how we just have slight brown tints there. Sort of pale yellow, brownish color. And that's all we're looking for. We just kind of want the hint of a bone-ish sort of color through the blackness that is this sort of ghostly figure. That's the kind of theme we're going for here. So that's working just fine. Just plop that on his hand here. And that will be that. And we can go straight into the next step, which is just going to be some wildwood, if I can get a hold of it. Actually, let's use snakebite leather. We'll use snakebite leather, and I'm just going to put this on the wood of the shield, which is just the backing here. Just very lightly. Keep that dark tone that we're going for, but color it just a tiny bit. There we go. And then I'm also going to take this, and because this, he's got some parchment bits here on his chest, because they're mostly been colored in blue, this will, the contrast paint actually goes over this, the lightness of the blue, and gives us the kind of color we're looking for, but different to the back of the shield. So, there he is. He's, now the model itself is basically done here. I'm going to do a couple more things, but I'm going to let this guy completely dry first, and we also have the base to do, obviously. So I'm going to let this guy completely dry, and then we'll come back, do the finishing touches, and then go to the base. Alright, so we're back, and it's all dry. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take some Nuln Oil, and on the bits of cloth here, I'm not sure if it comes across on camera, but you can see if I kind of tilt the miniature like this, the armor is very flat. whereas the cloth has a very satin finish. You can see how it catches the light there compared to this armor. The armor catches it a tiny bit, but nothing compared to this. So we're just going to take some Nuln Oil and apply this across the fabric, and this should hopefully flatten the finish down a little bit while not changing the color that much. So I'm just going to do this real quick, and then we'll let this completely dry, and then we will come back and start on the base. Alright guys, we're back, and our dude is all dry and ready to go, so we're just going to go on to the base now. I wasn't even sure I was going to film this part, because I'm sure we've all seen it a million times, but I'm going to put Armageddon Dust on the base as the texture. We're going to let that dry for a good long while. It really needs quite a long time to dry. So put this down just like this. Make sure to blend the flat base into this little piece of terrain here, so it's sort of half buried in the sand, as it were. Well, it won't be sand when we're done, but it's sort of sand colored right now. So we're just going to do this, apply it to the whole base, and then, like I said, let it dry for a good long while, a couple hours probably. We might help it along with the blow dryer. And then we'll come back and color it, add our tufts, and yeah, that'll be that. Pretty quick one today, but you know, as I've said many a time, don't just keep painting a miniature just for the sake of painting it. When the miniature's done, it's done. So yeah, I'll finish this texture paint up, and then once it's all dry, we'll come back and continue on. Alright guys, we have returned. Our basing is all dry. We're going to get into the colors. So, we're going to start with Gore-Grunta Fur. We're just going to cover the base with this. Then we're going to take some Gorthor Brown and do little dry brushing, over brushing kind of thing. And then we'll take some Rakarth Flesh after that and just pick out this statue that he's sort of stepping on here. And we'll add some tufts and then paint the base from black and call it a day as we do. But for now, I'm just gonna throw this on here, and I think I might just keep the camera rolling throughout this whole process. The overbrushing we're going to do can be done while this paint is still wet, so that's fine. So I'm just going to cover all this dirt. I mentioned this in the beginning, but I'll talk about it again. Because we're going for this very muted color palette on the miniature, if we did the same thing on the base, what you sort of end up doing is you end up almost with like a vignette thing where it almost looks like the miniature is a piece of artwork, and to a greater or lesser extent, miniatures are artwork. But what I mean by that is it looks like the entire thing is a product to be viewed, as opposed to what we want is this skeletal, ghostly figure moving through a real environment. So we don't want his environment to necessarily match him in style. A very easy way to differentiate a person from an environment is to make them one very vibrant and one very not vibrant. So that's what we're doing here. We're making the base vibrant and colorful so as to contrast with the miniature. So now we're going into Gorthor Brown here, and we're just gonna kind of where the wash hasn't settled, so on the higher points we're just gonna feather this out around here, just so that our dirt all isn't the same color, just like that. Not on the statue though, just doing it on the dirt. There we go. Just gonna feather this. This looks a little patchy over here, so I'm just gonna feather it out a little bit more. There we go. And then we're gonna take some Rakarth Flesh right here, and we're gonna do the same thing on the little statue that he's stepping on. So just get most of it off the brush. Not down to a dry brush, but just so we're not globbing it on. And then we're just looking for the raised bits here. We can leave the dirt color in the recesses. It's just fine, and if it mixes with this a little bit, it's also okay. We'll get this sort of palish, dirtish, stone-ish color, which is just fine. Oh, one of the bristles of our brush came out. Just get that out of there. Do this. There we go. That's good enough for our purposes. So then we can just go straight into tufts. And for this, I'm using the, what is this set called? Let's see if I can find the box for this set. Not Dry Step. This set is called the Green Meadow set. So in here are, this is from Gamer's Grass, not sponsored. I continue to say that just in case someone was confused. I don't have, not nearly large enough to be sponsored by a company like this, but I just like to be safe. So these are Strong Green, which are these tufts right here. Dry Green, right here. Green, and Light Green. So that's the 4 tufts we're going to use. I do them in the set, 1, because it's already color coordinated for us, and 2, this miniature is for someone else. I'm only painting a couple miniatures. He's going to paint the rest of the army, and so if I base them using a set, I can just say, okay, you don't have to go out and buy 4 boxes of tufts. You can just go out and buy the 1. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to take my tweezers here, and I'm just going to grab a couple randomly. So we'll just start here. And because the paint is still wet, I'm not going to worry about adding any super glue to the bottom of these. The adhesive on them combined with the wet paint will be just fine for sticking these down. So I'm going to lean more into the actual green tufts as opposed to the 2 that are sort of going towards brown. I am going to use some of these, but I want more of them to be the fully green ones, just so again we have this bright contrast with our miniature who's much more muted. So we're just going to do that, and then get some of these. This is the dry green. And we'll get one of the small dry green ones and stick it right up here like it's under that bit of statue. And then we'll grab some of these ones that are just called green. And when you're applying tufts, what you just want to be able to make sure you do is that you hide the edges of the adhesive. So I'll show you what I mean on this one. I'll grab another one and I'll put it about here. So if I just lay it down right here, you can see the line there of the adhesive. You don't want that. So I just press it down, kind of fold this grass over a little bit like that, and now you can't see the line of the adhesive anymore. We've hidden it under that. So I think we'll do one more. Maybe right here. There we go. I'll bring that on camera. And so there we go. So that is now our fully painted miniature, aside from the base, rim rather. And so now you can see how before we did the base, this guy he looked a little weird. At least in my opinion, I thought he looked a little weird. I'm not going to lie to you. But then now that we have this nice, bright, vibrant base going on, he looks like he really lives in this world, and he's just, something funky's going on with him. It's not the whole world that's just like, we didn't paint the world in a style. There's something going on with him that's making him look ghostly and weird. But he's just going through a normal environment. So I'm just going to paint the base rim black, and you'll see completed pictures of him now on your screen. But yeah, that'll do it for this guy. Coming up, we have there'll be a stream coming out this coming Monday where I paint a dire wolf. Here they are, ready to go. So that'll be exciting. And then probably gonna take a couple days to just chill. We'll paint a miniature a day for a year of painting. Obviously, we'll keep that streak going. Maybe some more bats. We'll see. And then this coming Thursday, painting begins on Kragnos, which will be quite exciting. That video will be out a week from tomorrow, tomorrow being May 29th. June 5th? Kraganos video should be out. Cross the fingers. We shall see. And then hopefully Croak soon after that. And then we'll see where we go from there. I guess whatever gets previewed this Saturday on the Dominion box set, we'll be painting those at some point, I'm sure. Probably do a couple of those boxes. Speed paint some stuff. Paint some stuff more slowly, different themes, etc. So it should be some great stuff coming up. I very much appreciate everybody watching, whether you're watching immediately as this comes out or far in the future. Either way, thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time.